The most commonly failed part in a Ford EXP are the liftgate supports. So let me pop open the trunk and I'll show you what's going on. Should be able to lift it open about halfway. It's not hard to get it that far, and then I'll slowly open the rest of the way. So, well, what makes these guys fail? Well, from the factory, they're not very big. Even these replacement ones aren't very big. You can see that the RAM is pretty small, and the cartridge is really small. I think the factory Ford ones are only a little bit bigger. So, there's that. Also, you have this massive deck it needs to open. The notchback trunk alone without the glass weighs about 35 pounds. You add the glass, that's another 15 pounds. Now you have a little over 50 pounds of hatch here. And this is only the notchback. If you have the bubble back, it's a lot more. I'm sure the bubble back is roughly 80 pounds, if not more. And if you have a spoiler, it's even more. The spoiler alone weighs 20 pounds. So you could have 80 some pounds onto this, or maybe even 90 pounds. Some even have a third tail light up in here. That's more weight. So these things are heavy, and you know the weight adds up over time. But again, these notchback ones are pretty light. One guy could pick this up, but you just need two guys to move it because it's big. It's really big. Well, and what else do we have going on? These have to extend a long distance in a short space. So when these compress, they're only about 1.5 feet long. At full distance, they're about 2 feet long. So, and these guys spend most of their life closed, so there's always pressure being put on these when they're shut, and that brings up a important concern elsewhere. But let me tell you where you can get these replaced. So most guys, when they sell their EXP, if they have a picture of their trunk area, you'll see a 2x4 either in this corner or in the middle, or maybe on here, that's cut just long enough to fit the tailgate open to hold that. But these are really easy to replace, and they're cheap enough. There's no reason why anyone shouldn't be able to replace them. It's not hard at all. If you have that wood prop, that helps a lot. Or even if you just have a second person, that helps a bunch. Because there's not much to it. You just need to prop the door open. Not at its full height, but about 2-3 inches down from its full height to replace the struts. If you lift it at full height, it's easier to remove these, but installing them is when you want it lowered about 2-3 inches. It helps a bunch, believe me. So when you go to replace these, what do you need to know? Okay, well, if you remember, I said the Ford ones were just a little bit thicker here. They also all have these metal tabs on each side. I'll try to show you this one. Bingo. Alright, that is for the defrost. You can see that I had a defrost tab there, but I had to remove the defrost because I only drive this in the summer. I've never needed the defrost. But it didn't work either, because the lines that go through it are open. Some of them are open, so only a couple of my lines defrosted anyway, so why have it if you can't use it? I left the lines because it looks OEM. Looks kind of cool, actually. But anyhow, they need to be able to have these if you're going to use them. Me, I'm not using them, so I don't have anything hooked up to them. Someday I'll just cut them off and paint the remaining stub black so it doesn't stand out. So when I replaced these, I hopped on Rock Auto. At the time, they were only $3 or $7, but the ones that I ordered weren't the right ones. Rock Auto had listed the wrong length hydraulics, the ones they sent me were just too long. So I called them up, talked to them about it, and they said, oh, okay, well, we think these are the correct ones. So they paid shipping for me to send back the ones that didn't fit. And then they sent me the correct ones just a few days later. And yeah, I didn't have to pay for shipping for those either. But they didn't give me a refund or anything. They just said, okay, we'll fix that. We'll send you the right part. Don't worry about shipping. And it happened. So I finally got the hydraulics that fit, but they were a little different. You can see that these Ford ones, they have a bolt running through one side, and on the other end, I don't know if you can see it, but the other end is a ball bolt. So it's a round-headed bolt that goes in there. And then the hydraulic has a socket on the end that fits perfectly over that ball, and it can swivel that way. That's really important because the struts you get from Rock Auto, at least when I got them 4 years ago, they came with the ball sockets on both ends, and that was okay because they gave me hardware. They actually gave me the bolts that go into these that have the balls on the end, but those bolts were too small for these holes, so I couldn't use them anyways. Luckily, the socket on the ram end was the correct size for the ball bolt of my car, so that fit in fine. But I had to wrench off the ball socket end on the cartridge side, and I had to reuse the eyelet from my factory struts. So that's something you need to know. That's really important, because I don't know if Rock Auto's fixed that or not. But that's really important. When you buy new ones of these, you need to keep these old eyelets, because new struts may not come with them. You also need to keep the original bolt and the original ball end bolt. Having those two is really important, because you can't guarantee that you're going to be sent the right ones. So that's about all there is to it. And with these, they're mounted in about the same exact place on the bubble hatches, from what I can tell. I only have one bubble hatch, a 1984 EXP, and it seems to be mounted in that exact location. And they are directly interchangeable. You can swap them out, bubble for notchback, notchbacks for bubble, whatever you want. It's no problem. Something I will be tackling in the future is the supports that the ball end goes onto. If you can watch that while I move the trunk, you can see there's a fair amount of flex there. So it's just really thin metal that comes out, goes over, and bridges back in. And that's all that bolt is mounted to, is just that thin piece of metal. So it's not much. Someday this summer, I will go in there and I will reinforce it, because that is horrid. These guys just flop all day. They do firm up once you replace both struts, but they're still not as firm as they should be. And that's something I wanted to bring up too. Don't just replace one, replace both. Because one strut alone will not hold this open. That's important when you have it propped up, or when you have a buddy holding this open while you're changing these out. One isn't enough. If you put just one on there, let go, it'll just go punk, and then it's not going to come back up on its own. You might damage something if it goes down, because it will go down hard. You need to be careful with these guys, because if only one's damaged and the other's fine, but you're replacing both, if one's fine, you got to be really careful, because when you undo this screw, it will try to shoot up and into your glass. I haven't had any hit my glass, but I've had a bunch try, and it's not pleasant. But that's about the best way to do it, is undo this end, because once you have this drop down, you can sit inside the car with the trunk open or the trunk closed, pop this cap off, it just slides on and off. And then slide this retaining clip off and away from the strut. It will just pop off and it will fall wherever it falls. And then you can slide the whole hydraulic off of it, and then you can put a socket on that bolt. I tell you the socket size, but they vary. They're not all the same, so I don't want to lie to you. But it's pretty easy to do these, so there's no reason you shouldn't do these every, I don't know. I'm sure you have to do it every 10 years at the least, every 5 years at the most. I've had these for 4 years and haven't had an issue yet. So, like I said, they're only $3 to $7 to replace them, depending on where you go. So, yeah, that's all there is to it. Here we go. That's the deal with these. They never, ever seem to shut on the first try. You know, it's just how it goes. But, yeah. So, good luck on changing yours. Again, they're really not difficult. As long as you can get a wooden prop or have a buddy help hold it open. Fair warning, like I said, those bubble hatches are heavy, especially if they have the wing on the back, and especially if that wing has the extra taillight. These guys become pretty heavy. So you might need 3 people if you have a bubble back. Otherwise, you're probably in good shape. So, hope that works out for you guys like it does for me, and we'll catch you later.